Good morning for all you connoisseurs of the stage and lovers of musicals. Today I have a very special guest, Lea Salonga, a virtual icon in the world of musicals. We'll find out all about how she got to where she is. Don't go away.
The world is full of zanies and fools who don't believe in sensible rules and won't believe what sensible people say.
Joining me is someone who really needs no introduction. My guest today is Lea Salonga. Sawadee ka.
Sawadee ka.
Oh, very good. You're learning,
Thank
you learned very quickly.
I try to, and everybody says Sawadee ka to me since I got here, that it's just been, oh, I guess that's how people say hello over here. And it's really sweet. I found it to be a really nice way of people greeting each other. It seems very respectful and very kind. You know, back home, people say kamusta to one another. And I think given so many of Western influence, it's much more, there are more handshakes, there's more kissing. It's very demonstrative back home. It's great too, but I found it to be, you know, very, very sweet to see how people greet each other here in Thailand.
It's good that you're making the transition so easily.
I try to adjust as easily as I can.
Well, talking about places you visited before coming to Thailand and looking back on your career in the Philippines,
Yeah.
lots of time in the United States as well,
Yeah.
a glorious career on Broadway. What spurred it? What started it all?
What started it all? Well, I had a cousin, well actually she's still alive and kicking, so I have a cousin. I have a cousin who was, at the time that when I was very young, she was very active with Repertory Philippines, which is a local Philippine repertory group that produces a lot of Western plays and musicals. And their mission statement was to train professional actors, and they're still doing that today. So her name is Rhea, my cousin's name is Rhea, and she told my mom, Tita, we have auditions for The King and I, Lea might want to come and audition. So my mom wasn't really sure about all this, but she brought me anyway to the audition, so I got up on stage, and at the time The Sound of Music was my favorite musical, and so I got up and I sang Do Re Mi from The Sound of Music, and they asked me if I could recite a poem. I'm like, I don't know any poems, but I have my Girl Scout oath. I mean, I had just finished my Scout investiture not long before this audition. So I got up there, I raised 3 fingers in one hand, doing this, and I recited my Scout oath. After the audition was over, I shouted to my mother, Mom, how did I do? And the director, she passed away a few years ago. She was sitting and handling all these auditions. She looked up to me, sitting from the house, and she said, you did fine. Now get off the stage. I got the job. So I got the job in The King and I, and because I was loud, and for no other reason, I'd like to believe.
Fast forwarding a little, a big break in Miss Saigon, and one that most people remember you for.
Right.
Looking back on that experience, how was that for you? And
I was 17 when I auditioned for Miss Saigon. I was actually a pre-med student, so I was getting ready to, you know, I was getting ready to start another career. And since my family had emphasized education being far more important than anything, I thought, well, this will be good. I think this will be good. And so I was pretty much preparing my head and the rest of me for a career in the medical field. And I liked biology as a subject in school, so I felt that this would not be extremely difficult to do. And I kept my love of biology in college, which is probably never really going to change. It still fascinates me. However, in my freshman year in university, there was news of these auditions for Miss Saigon, that the creators and the producer were going to different countries. And I think by the time they got to Manila, they had already auditioned in London, New York, Los Angeles, and Honolulu. By the time they got to us, they had already looked for Kim in each of these territories. And in Manila alone, I think there were about 200 women that auditioned for Miss Saigon, for Kim, for Miss Saigon, for the show. And by the time I think they got to me, they had quite a few candidates that had already come and gone. It was the first day of auditions. I got there at around 2-something and went in. It was straight out of school. headed over to the Cultural Center of the Philippines where the auditions were held. And I would see like people, there would be a line of people going in the room and then leaving, going in, going out. And with each one of them, I was just getting more and more nervous. But I'd like to think that I had prepared quite well. And at the time that I was doing, at the time of these auditions, I was doing a musical called The Fantastics. And it was through one of the other actors in the show that I was introduced to Les Mis and to the song On My Own. And it was On My Own that I used as my audition piece for Miss Saigon. And that kind of just led me to a whole lot of other things after that.
Lucky choice then.
It was a good choice. And I think the strategy of many auditionees is to sing a song that the creators wrote. So I think that turned out to be a plus. However, I didn't sing that song as well as they probably would have liked. They asked me if I knew of another song, and so I said, I know The Greatest Love of All by Whitney Houston, and I was quite prepared to sing it a cappella. However, one of the previous candidates, one of the previous auditioners, actually left her music on the piano, and it was The Greatest Love of All. I told the pianist to play it for me, and I was praying that it would be in my key, and it was, and it was like, God is kind. And so I opened my mouth and all my notes hit and everything, and then they just called me back, and at my callback I was learning music from the show.
Excellent. Well, looking towards everything else that followed, you mentioned that you were nervous going into this audition.
Yeah.
Do you find that you're nervous for everything even until now?
I'm nervous going into every audition for many different reasons. I'm nervous because I don't want to flub any lines. I don't want to forget anything. I want to make sure that my performance at this audition is good. And the other thing I'm nervous about is I don't always know what the panel is looking for. I don't know what the creators, the director, I don't know what they want. So I can give them everything and still not give them what they want. And it can be an incredibly frustrating experience for any actor to leave an audition without getting a callback, because you're thinking to yourself, I gave it my best. What do they want from me? Blood, you know? It's hit or miss. And even for those who have been well established in this business, even if you have awards and numerous achievements on paper, it's never a guarantee of another job on Broadway. And I mean, to this day, I still audition. I still have to sing for a lot of roles that I do get.
Looking at musicals, which combining both your singing talents and your acting talents,
yeah.
What do you find has been the greatest challenge in having to really put those two together successfully?
Actually, for me, the challenge is not singing and acting together. I've actually found that it's really easy to do both. Singing lends itself to acting because there's such an obvious emotional arc when looking at a song. It's easy to point out where the emotions will go. And when the music is playing, when the orchestra is playing, the orchestration a lot of the times will dictate just how your emotions are supposed to run, which is great when you're doing a through-sung musical like Les Mis or Miss Saigon. However, when I do a traditional book musical in the way that Cinderella would be, or The King and I, or The Fantastics, or They're Playing Our Song, or any of the other more traditional musical theater pieces that I've done, my challenge is when I'm not singing, because it's a completely open book as to intonation, accent, emotional highs, crests, and lows, and I have to determine a lot of that. And so it's challenging but very exciting to not have any of this dictated to me, and for me to pretty much determine the course of how things are going to go. So in a way, it's more challenging, but it's also a lot of fun. And so far with this, I mean, it's with Cinderella now, it's putting a lot of respect into what is a beloved fairy tale, and trying to chart my way through a script. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I can definitely say that it's rewarding for the audience to see you being able to have that traditional story, as you mentioned, but also have some of your personality behind it as well.
Oh yeah, we can't help it. There's always going to be a lot of us, a lot of an actor in the role that they get to play, and it lends a little insight into what they're really like in real life, but not too much of it. but it's pretty much our take on who this character is. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll end how we started.
Okay.
That's all from here from Out and About. We'll have to see you next time.